Hello history buffs and welcome back to the channel. Today we're travelling back to the 8th of November 1543 to celebrate the birth of a fascinating figure in Tudor history, Lettice Knollys. Lettice was the granddaughter of the infamous Mary Boleyn and a love rival to Queen Elizabeth I. So let's dive into her story and explore the life of this remarkable woman who was at the heart of Elizabethan England. Lettice Knollys was born on this day in 1543, the daughter of Sir Francis Knollys and Catherine Carey. Her mother Catherine was the daughter of Mary Boleyn, sister of the ill-fated Queen Anne Boleyn, which meant that Lettice was a blood relative of the then Lady Elizabeth and future Queen Elizabeth I. Her grandmother, Mary Boleyn, is most famously known as the Other Boleyn Girl, and for her affair with King Henry VIII, which added a layer of mystery to Lettice's lineage. Some even speculated that Henry VIII may have been her great-grandfather, though there's no solid proof of this. It certainly added to her intrigue surrounding her. Lettice was a well-educated and well-connected woman, and her marriages would cement her place as a key figure in the complex web of Tudor alliances. During the reign of Mary I, Lettice's parents, Francis and Catherine, went into self-imposed exile on the continent in fear of being persecuted for being a Protestant. Some of their children went with them, while others stayed in England. Unfortunately, it is unknown whether Lettice followed her parents or if she stayed at Hatfield with her cousin Elizabeth, either of which is highly possible. When Mary died in 1558, Lettice's cousin Elizabeth came to the throne, and many of those who went into exile on the continent, like Catherine Willoughby, Duchess of Suffolk, and Lettice's parents, came back to England as the country yet again shifted in religious attitudes. Elizabeth, as we know, promoted her Boleyn relatives and placed great trust in them. Lettice's father, Francis Knollys, was made Elizabeth's vice-chamberlain, while her mother, Catherine, was one of the 4 ladies of the bedchamber. Lettice herself entered the royal household as a gentlewoman of the Privy Chamber. This could be just because she was a relative from the Boleyn faction, but others have suggested that this throws more credence to the fact she did indeed stay with Elizabeth at Hatfield. Lettice was referred to as one of the Queen's favourites, so it is possible that they struck up a close bond in their youth, which, if they did, makes Lettice's betrayal to Elizabeth even more devastating. But let me know what you think in the comments. Lettice was married 3 times, and each of these marriages shaped her life and reputation. Her first marriage was to Walter Devereux, 1st Earl of Essex, in 1560. Together they had several children, including Robert Devereux, who would go on to become the 2nd Earl of Essex and a favourite of Queen Elizabeth I, though his life would end in tragedy. Lettice's daughter Penelope became Lady Rich and was known for her beauty and intelligence, while another daughter, Dorothy, married into the powerful Percy family and became the Countess of Northumberland. Lettice was close to both her daughters, Penelope and Dorothy. Lettice would leave court soon after her marriage. While pregnant with her 3rd child, Lettice returned to London for her brother Henry's wedding. Elizabeth and Lettice's relationship at this point was fine, but it was strained, especially when Robert Dudley allegedly showed attention to Lettice during the celebrations. This supposedly had been deliberate, as Robert Dudley had been trying to woo the Queen for quite some time, and she had been umming and ahhing about it, and he hoped that by flirting with Lettice, he would incite some sort of decision from her. And this is why, boys, you don't play games, and you just have an open and honest conversation, because all it did was enrage Elizabeth, who scolded Dudley for his flirting with the Viscountess in very better words. Lettice then gave birth to a boy whom she named Robert. Naturally, as you may be wondering, rumours swirled that her son Robert Devereux may not be her husband's, but indeed his father was Robert Dudley. Unfortunately, as juicy and scandalous as that gossip is, there is no evidence to support this rumour, and there is no evidence to suggest that the child was not Walter's. Walter died in 1576, leaving Lettice available to wed again, and based on what I've just covered, her second choice of husband is quite interesting. Lettice's second marriage caused one of the most significant scandals of Elizabethan England. After the death of her first husband, she married Robert Dudley, 1st Earl of Leicester, in 1578. Dudley, of course, was Queen Elizabeth's lifelong favourite and rumoured love interest. The Queen, who famously never married, was furious when she discovered that her closest companion had married Lettice behind her back. As a result, Lettice was banished from court and fell out of Elizabeth's favour for the rest of her life. Queen Elizabeth's jealousy and anger towards her former favourite became one of the greatest rivalries of the Tudor era. Although she somehow managed to forgive Robert, but just not Lettice. Elizabeth was furious, and Robert Dudley did spend some time in the Tower. However, her counsellors rightly pointed out that it wasn't against the law for an unmarried man to marry, and he was released. According to Margaret Simpson, in her book Horribly Famous, Elizabeth I and Her Conquests wrote, "When Lettice Dudley showed up at court in her best gear, Liz boxed her ears and said, 'As but one sun lights the east, I will have one queen in England.' She never had a good word to say for Lettice and called her the she-wolf." I think we can consider Lettice's relationship with Elizabeth damaged and burnt beyond repair. Robert died in 1588. In his will, Sir Robert Dudley ensured Lettice would be well provided for. However, despite his good intentions, he left her with a complex and problematic inheritance. If Dudley had been the cause of the rift between Lettice and Queen Elizabeth I, his death did nothing to repair the damage. Elizabeth's resentment towards Lettice remained, even though many of Lettice's family members held prominent positions at court, and her son Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, appeared to have taken his godfather and stepfather's, Dudley's, place as the Queen's favourite. Elizabeth was so devastated by Dudley's death that she locked herself in her chamber, refusing to speak to anyone for several days. It wasn't until the treasurer and other councillors forcibly opened the door that they were able to see her. Yet, despite her grief, Elizabeth showed no sympathy for Dudley's widow, Lettice. Dudley had died with significant debts owed to the Queen, and Elizabeth was determined to recover what was due. She forced Lettice to auction off her furniture to settle the debt, and even reclaimed a house that had once been given to Dudley. This was all in spite of the fact that Dudley had bequeathed Elizabeth a magnificent necklace of 600 pearls, which became part of her vast collection of jewels. The Queen famously wore it in the portrait celebrating the English victory over the Spanish Armada. Lettice's third and final husband was Sir Christopher Blount, or Blount, a loyal supporter of her son Robert Devereux. Despite the political turmoil surrounding her family, Lettice managed to survive the dangerous waters of Elizabethan politics. However, her later years were marked by tragedy. Her son Robert Devereux, the second Earl of Essex, led a rebellion against Elizabeth I in 1601 and was executed for treason. This event devastated Lettice, who had already been distanced from the Queen for so many years. But Lettice was nothing if not resilient. She outlived her son, her husbands, and even Queen Elizabeth herself, living well into the reign of King James I. Lettice died in 1634 at the remarkable age of 91, a long and eventful life, especially for someone living in the 16th and 17th centuries. Despite being overshadowed by her infamous feud with Elizabeth I, Lettice Knollys was a key figure in the Tudor court. Through her children, she continued to have an impact on the political landscape of England, and her connections to the Boleyns, Careys, and Dudleys ensured that her name would live on in history. And that's where we'll leave today's video. Lettice Knollys was a woman who navigated the highs and lows of Tudor court life with grace and determination, leaving her mark on one of the most tumultuous periods in English history. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure that notification bell is turned on so you never miss a video. But until the next one, have a wonderful day.